Ho, 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 we made this.
Hello, ho, 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 and welcome back to CHUCKYVISION, the first of our specials since Season 2 has ended. And if you thought one Christmas special wasn't enough, then we have got you covered, because we didn't mean to do a Christmas special with Chucky the show. We were going to do our own Christmas special. And here it is. What a great intro.
Well done, Dev.
What a great intro from your host, Dev. And with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Mark.
Hello. Merry Christmas, season's greetings, Happy New Year, and all that gubbins.
Season's greetings, yes. We're going to be talking the big C today. And I don't mean cancer, COVID, or cunt. Or even Chucky in this case. We are talking Christmas.
We found a really, really tenuous link to a film that is completely different to what we normally talk about. And why the fuck not? It's Christmas.
It is very different. I'm very pleasantly surprised as a vague spoiler. But it is.
We haven't told them what we're doing yet.
It does have a link, as you said. It's a film that stars Brad Dourif and Grace Zabriskie. It's kind of a Child's Play 2 reunion. This is the 2015 film Rosemont, also known as Christmas at Rosemont, aka Snowed In at Rosemont.
Yeah, I'll be honest, when I saw that there were 3 names for it, it didn't fill me with confidence, in as much as I thought, well, if they've had to rename it twice, it means they thought it was shite twice. But that's not really the case. This is obviously very, very different to what we normally talk about. There is no blood, guts, gore, killer dolls, or meta humour whatsoever in this film. But I'll be damned if I didn't think it was quite pleasant.
Yes. So, this is a different kind of movie than we've covered before. And Chucky has run the gamut of different ranges. They've been big theatrical films, and they've been direct-to-DVD films. And this, as far as I understand, I think it has been put out on DVD, it has been put out on physical media, but it was made as a TV movie, and so that is why it has so many different titles, because when different TV channels buy it, the initial name, I think, was just called Rosemont, and so I think other channels think, that doesn't really sound like a Christmas movie, so let's call it Christmas at Rosemont, and then retroactively other TV channels thought, this doesn't really feel like a Christmas movie, so let's call it Snowed In at Rosemont.
I think for me, I'm not like an expert in any of this shit, but the most marketable name I would have thought was Christmas at Rosemont, because there's huge amounts of money in Christmas themed crapo from basically midway point of November till the midway point of January. That's like a sixth of the year that everyone wants to watch Christmas shite.
Yeah, this is definitely part of the genre of movies that they're on TV. People don't turn the TV on to watch specifically this movie, but they will turn on the Hallmark channel, they will turn on the Lifetime channel, and they are doing all day 24-hour marathons of just every movie with the word Christmas in it. And this goes in there, but as we'll get into it, this movie isn't like all of those other movies, is it? It is not a holly jolly, saccharine sweet, we love Christmas, the commercial.
Yeah. What you're saying is it's not shite.
Yes, in a way.
Sorry, Merry Christmas.
So, yeah, I will just read a few choice reviews to get an idea of this movie, because if you look on Rotten Tomatoes...
Tomatoes, we're British!
Well, it's an American website.
Sod off.
If you look at RT, then you will see that not a single critic has reviewed this movie. It doesn't even have a 0%, it has a nothing percent. But there is a fan score of 70%. So that's quite decent. And I've looked at reviews from all over, from Amazon to DVD websites to just all sorts of different websites. And there are some interesting responses. I mean, notably, there's a few here of just... We'll start here. This film has to be one of, if not the best Christmas films. Usually, I wouldn't buy any, but this one was a must. It's got to be good. I even bought a multi-region DVD player just to watch it on. And this follows a little bit of a trend of, please make copies of this brilliant film for Region 2. I love this film, and I'm really disappointed that I cannot buy it on DVD in the UK. I've watched this film about 20 times and I haven't grown tired of it. This movie has found an audience.
That's pushing it. It's watchable. It's Christmas tat, but I'm not sure it's the best film ever. Please release on DVD in the UK. You can watch it on Amazon. I watched it on Amazon. It was £3. So just watch it on Amazon. What's wrong with you? If you're internet savvy enough to fucking review it on Amazon, just watch it on Amazon.
Yes, we should say, if you're going to watch this movie, I believe you can get it on DVD. Me and Mark watched it on Amazon in the UK. In the US, which most of our audience is based, in the US, you can get it on a variety of things like Tubi and similar free streaming sites like that. You can get it free on a number of websites in the US. In the UK, for the longest time, I thought we had it free on YouTube. There was a channel. It had the little tick, so it was an official channel. They had the trailer for it, and the trailer, I watched it, and I was like, okay, we should probably watch this at some point. They had the full film on there, because it was a whole channel of just different films, very cheap TV movies. I started it. It was in Spanish. It was a Spanish dub. I don't understand, because the trailer was English, the channel was in English, but this was a Spanish dub. And so, yeah, we had to buy the movie.
I mean, mierda. How do I respond to this?
The Spanish dub did not sound anything like Brad Dourif. He's got a very unique voice.
How much of the Spanish dub did you watch?
I skimmed through it.
You watched the whole thing? You were like,
no.
I'm seeing stuff Christmassy. I'm going to watch this in Spanish. Olé!
I just want to get through a couple more of these reviews because there are some very funny, interesting points. And if I don't get through them in all one go, I could throw these throughout the episode, but I'll just end up forgetting.
Right, good.
This is one of those that will fill your heart with love and peace, goes to show that you never know who you might meet or what your life has in store for you. It makes you wish life could turn out just like it does in the movies. Check it out, you won't be sorry. That was one sentence. This is where the great character actor Brad Dourif comes in as Abe. Dourif has been in many films and shows dating back to the 1970s. Not all great films, but still very eclectic in the roles he performs. This role I found a bit beneath his talent. I'd say he plays a drunk, but he sounds sober all the time. I picked that one because it was very specific to Brad Dourif, and a lot of these reviews, as one of these TV Christmas movies, I will ask you, do you think the target audience knows Brad Dourif played Chucky?
Probably not, but I think they might know he was, the hotel owner in
Yes,
Deadwood.
They might recognize Deadwood. They would probably recognize him from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, as this review seems to suggest.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's very interesting. One of the reasons we picked this film was because very different audiences. These people, probably aren't watching it for Brad Dourif.
And looking further down my notes, I have actually made a note of the character's name, Doc Cochran.
Oh,
but it does, to me, it is odd seeing Brad Dourif's voice, and even though I watched Deadwood and loved Deadwood, it still feels weird seeing Brad Dourif's voice on a real person.
Well, I've watched a lot of Tat, so I've seen Brad Dourif in a number of films.
I mean, like I say, I love Deadwood, and his character's great in that, but I don't know. His voice sounds weird on a person.
Do you remember him in Alien Resurrection?
Was he an Alien Resurrection?
He was an Alien Resurrection. He like that review said, he was very eclectic in it. He played a scientist who, at one point, like, he has a alien in a glass prison, and the alien is doing that thing that it does where it snarls and the little mouth comes out. And Brad Dourif is like mimicking him, like going up against the glass and like almost kissing him. It's a weird role, but very Brad Dourif.
Yeah. Before we get into the film itself, what I really, really hate is anyone who likes the snow. So at the start of this film, someone likes the snow, and I'm like, well, I fucking hate that character. I don't understand why anyone in their right mind would like snow. It just gets in the way, slows down your life, and it means it's cold. Why would any human like snow? We are not made to deal with snow. It just sucks. Hate snow, gets in the way, stops me from doing shit I like. Just, no. Fuck snow. I hate snow as much as I hate Instagram.
I don't know if I dislike snow that strongly. It's all right.
Maybe we should have a poll. What do you hate more, snow or Instagram?
There's plenty of snow in this movie.
I know.
I will say, for a lot of these Christmas movies, which I don't think many are filmed around Christmas, a lot of real snow in this. Well, there's some fake snow, but a lot of it is real, which is nice.
Yeah.
Before we get into this movie, then, do we want to talk about who made this movie? Because I thought, initially, nobody made this movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is just another Christmas movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. People, directors, writers, there's nothing wrong with writing a Christmas movie, because you are guaranteed, I think, TV payments each year if it gets played. And
royalties,
yeah. And also just, you can say that a lot of these movies are commercial or cynical, but it's fun to write a Christmas movie, so I don't have anything against those people. But then I took a look at who made this movie, and it is odd. It only adds to the oddness of this movie, or it explains the oddness of this movie. So the director, Daniel Petrie Jr., he has only done a handful of movies directing. Probably the most notable one he did was the 90s Pauly Shore vehicle, In the Army Now.
Never heard of it.
If you want to know what that movie is like, there's a 1-2 punch on Letterboxd of bring back Pauly Shore, and then right under it, fuck you, Pauly Shore. So, that is In the Army Now. But then I noticed his writing credits. Dan Petrie Jr. wrote Beverly Hills Cop, and he wrote Turner and Hooch.
Fuck, like, really?
Yes.
I mean, they're not masterpieces, but they're popular as fuck.
Yeah, those are the biggest ones. He wrote a number of movies in the 80s and then early 90s. And yeah, then he went into directing. But yeah, he wrote some big films.
Really?
I'm
genuinely surprised. I just thought this was like rando telly shit.
That's what I thought. And then the weirder note was, if he didn't write this, he just directed it. Who did write it? And then I saw Bill Rebane. And that name is not going to get recognition from a lot of people, but it will from me, because I reviewed 6 of his movies last year in a Arrow Video box set on Blu-ray called the Weird Wisconsin box set. And Bill Rebane was a director in the quite a long way, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. He basically created a Hollywood in the Midwest. He grew up in Wisconsin, and he didn't want to go to Hollywood. He didn't like Hollywood. So he had land. He had like 200 acres of a ranch. And he just built sets, and he just started making movies. And they are all similar in tone, similar in quality to his 1965 Monster A Go-Go, which Mystery Science Theater 3000 said was one of the worst movies they ever covered. And there is a charm there is a uniqueness, an idiosyncrasy to his movies, but yes, they are all pretty bad. And the last movie he, I think, wrote or directed was 2004. And yet, 2015, he is writing a Christmas movie.
Good for him.
It doesn't match any of his other movies in tone or anything. And it's probably really his best movie. And the weird thing was, I really looked into this because I really wanted to know why or how this was made. And I did...
This sounds like an absolute fucking rabbit hole, Dev.
It wasn't a deep rabbit hole because there really is so little about this movie. I've not seen any interviews, I've not seen any articles on it, but I did see some guy who was friends with Bill Rebane, or who knew Bill Rebane. I did find on channel3000.com, Doug Moe wrote that he knew Bill Rebane, and there were two important facts. One, that Bill Rebane's wife, who had helped produce all of his movies, she had helped, with the production, and she was there on every movie. She passed away in 2014, I think. So that, when we'll get into it, you feel that in the movie. A lot of this movie is about older people getting over grief and getting over loss. So that clearly is a big part of this movie. But then there's another quote, and this is a quote from him. They butchered it. The suits again. So, evidently, that was the other quote here, yeah. This is how I found it. On Letterboxd, someone says, it doesn't seem to match the original Winter Roses screenplay written by Bill Rebane. So, I guess Bill Rebane wrote a different version of this film, and then it halfway became like a Hallmark TV Christmas movie.
Right. I mean, as Hallmark TV Christmas movies go, this is a better one.
It did, yeah, that's what I mean by halfway. It didn't go all the way. I think there's still plenty of what he originally wrote in this movie.
Interesting. I just thought it was kind of generic tat, and it wouldn't be anyone who'd got anything interesting going on. Maybe someone who'd written Days of Our Lives or something like that, but fascinating.
You do get the sense, and we're going to get into the film now, but you do get the sense throughout that there is something a little bit more to this film. Because it is darker and more realistic with real-world issues than a typical Christmas movie would be.
Yeah.
So, with that out of the way, let's get into Rosemont itself.
Right, before we do, we discussed this, and maybe we should have put this to a vote. But it was either going to be this or Santa's Sleigh, which has got no link to Chucky, other than it's a horror film and it's set at Christmas. And that one has got Bill Goldberg in it, and I just wanted to watch it. But Dev suggested we watch something a bit more relevant. Let us know on social media if Dev was right or whether we should have watched Santa's Sleigh.
We can always watch Santa's Sleigh next year, at the next Christmas
We
special.
can always just watch Santa's Sleigh for the lols.
So yes, we get into Rosemont, and it's. I honestly thought it was the state or maybe the city. Rosemont is the hotel, the lodge. I'm not actually sure where this is set. I think it's Chicago.
America.
Wherever it is, it's quite beautiful. And we see the beauty, the majestic beauty of these 2 minutes of stock footage as the credits roll.
The very Christmassy credits roll. It was very festive.
Very Word document font on the credits. This film doesn't hide its cheapness. Let's not sugarcoat how cheap this movie is at times, but it gives you the idea that this is going to be a generic Christmas movie by how cheap it starts.
I've seen some absolute cats at Christmas, and this really isn't the worst. I think before again, I've interrupted when we're supposed to be talking about Rosemont, but what is the actual worst Christmas film you've ever seen? Because I've got an absolute humdinger. What's the worst you've ever seen?
I've seen some films that can barely be considered films. I mean, I've seen Santa Claus versus the Martians.
Wow, that sounds great.
It sounds great, but it's from like the 60s and it's barely a movie.
Okay.
It's funny, but it drags.
Right. I think for me, and I bought this for my niece, who at the time was 3, and my brother still curses my name for buying this because she loved it and wanted to watch it on the reg, and it is unwatchably shite. It's called Bone Alone. Isn't the pornographic version of Home Alone. It is the dog version of Home Alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is the dog being a dog and talking and setting up traps that it is not possible to set up with paws in a house for a very, very shite version of Home Alone. It is unwatchable shite. And my brother has to watch it 2 or 3 times every December because my niece loves it. And I'm so proud of myself. But I will not watch that film again. I do not want my brain to start dripping out of my ear.
That did remind me, though, of a Christmas movie. Probably the other most despicable movie I've seen is, and I love it, I do watch this movie every Christmas because it's just so terrible. Have you ever seen Deck the Halls?
No, I've heard of it, though.
Yes, the, what's his name? Ferris Bueller. You know what I mean.
Yeah, him.
Ferris Bueller and Danny DeVito. It's one of those movies where on the surface, it's so like sickly sweet and like, Christmas, everyone loves Christmas. But then the characters are just so horrible and mean-spirited. The movie is so horrible, the entire movie. And then at the end, like the last 5 minutes, it tries to do that thing of, it's Christmas, we're all happy, everyone forgives each other. And it's like, fuck off. You did not earn that. You did not earn that turn at all.
It's just some absolutely terrible, terrible tat. And I'm so glad this wasn't terrible, terrible tat, and it was just tat.
That's a good way of putting it. It's tat, but it's not bad at all. It kind of like turns. There's a number of turns in this. We get straight into the story. We immediately learn that our protagonist, Lisa, played by Ayla Kell, she is trying to get away from Vegas. She's on a coach trip, across states, but it's very snowy. All the roads stuck. So they're stuck at a diner, and then they're going to turn back away from the snow. But then she overhears our other protagonist, Brad, played by Michael Coughlin, and he has a 4x4, and he's going to get across to Denver. And you will see in certain scenes like this, did you notice how Bill Rebane reminds me of Garth Marenghi in ways that they know a lot of authors that use subtext and they're all cowards? There is no subtext in some of these scenes. It is literally just, Lisa wants to get away, but she can't. But then she meets Brad, and Brad has the way forward. And then they just ask each other, can we go together? They're literally just saying what needs to be said. It's quite surreal.
Yes, I think you're right. And it really does feel ever so slightly rushed. And the old lady is absolutely right. There's no way this young pregnant girl should trust a rando that she's just met, let alone a random man. It was a kind of like, oh, okay, I know you need to get them in the car, but fucking hell. Yeah.
It is one of the, clever. It is one of the clever setups that she gets the license plate of Brad's car. But that is one of the things as well in this movie where in a more Christmassy movie, they would have been like, you can get across the snow? I need to get across the snow. And then they're really happy about it. This has that weird element of realism where you have a character say, I don't know if that's safe. Where it's like, hang on, why are you reminding us of the dangers of reality in this Christmas movie?
So I thought that really the first 15 minutes of this film did feel quite like a horror film.
People have said that in the reviews. Someone said something to the degree of, and I'll find it now, every time I thought something awful or dangerous was going to happen, it didn't.
Yeah.
And that's before the people renowned for horror films even enter the film.
Yeah. It really did feel like a horror film. Definitely. I mean, maybe I was looking for it, but I also think it kind of had to feel like a horror film because they get snowed in at a remote location where they can't leave, and that is a very kind of horror filmy type trope, isn't it?
Yes, it is The Shining, but it's The Shining if everything just turned out good.
I didn't even think about that. Shit, you're right. It's like Face Turn Shining.
It is. It's just like if the isolation actually brought them together as a family.
While we're talking about horror films, for those people who haven't clocked it, the lead character in this is an actor called Grace Zabriskie. And you mentioned that she's been in Child's Play 2, but you didn't mention who she was. She was Grace Poole, the social worker who had the photocopier death. Fucking iconic.
I do have listed here that it is quite a weird roster of horror stars because, yes, Grace Zabriskie, known for Child's Play 2, she's probably most known for being Sarah Palmer, Laura Palmer's mother in Twin Peaks. She gets her fair share of horror in that show. You get Brad Dourif, of course, from Chucky and other numerous horror films over the years. You get Michael Gross, who comes in later. He was America's Dad on Family Ties, but then, have you ever seen any of the Tremors films?
Yes, he's in all of them.
Yes, he is Burt Gummer in the Tremors
He
films.
survives the lot.
Yeah.
I think he's in the telly show as well.
Yeah, he was as well, yeah. And so you get them, and then you also get the husband character that comes in. He's played by Lachlan Monroe. He hasn't been in many horror films, but most people might recognize him from Scary Movie. He was in the first Scary Movie.
No, I didn't clock that one.
He was in that.
Brilliant.
And then the two young actors, they're still quite young, so they've been in a horror film each. But like that's kind of indicative of people getting into acting, or people getting into directing, or people getting into writing. Because guess what? Two genres are really cheap to produce: horror and Christmas. And also, they get aired every year on holidays.
Yeah.
So you are right that this film does veer, incidentally, into horror tropes. And I think it's because, not because the director is intentionally doing it, rather he's unintentionally doing that. There is a distinct lack of direction in this movie. And I think the fact that it's so... I won't say I will say flat. The fact that it's so distinctly unimpressionable that it's easy to see these scenes as horror when maybe obviously they're not meant to be.
Well, it's just like a car crash, meaning you have to go to a remote location, a weirdo with a gun, and someone who seems suspicious, but he actually isn't the Brad Dourif character. He's actually genuinely very lovely. But at the very start, because I'd got into like a horror feel, I felt like he was really suspicious. And then I don't know how they could have stopped it from feeling like a horror film because of the premise.
Well, they do try in that scene when Grace Zabriskie comes out in silhouette with the shotgun and threatens the two of them. They do put that very noticeably stock music in the background to try and alleviate the mood.
It didn't work.
It didn't work, no. And you might not get it, but it reminds me of all the Oblivion memes. I'll have to send you one for context, but there's a video game called Oblivion, and there's very similar music to the music in this film.
All right, you don't have to patronise me just because current popular culture has passed me by. Rude. Your accuracy is offensive to me.
It's not that mainstream. Oblivion is a game from like 2008, and so this is kind of a nerd meme.
That's way after I retired from video gaming.
But yeah, the music, it does... I'll have to show you the fact. If anyone knows that meme, you'll understand what I mean. The fact that they put the music that sounds very similar, they put that music in videos, like caught on camera videos of people talking really strangely or having really strange conversations.
Okay.
The stock music also doesn't hinder or help the horror vibes. It just makes it more surreal. Because they use the same music again and again throughout this film.
Yeah. What I will say about the way that the couple get together and how it's like the kind of putting these two people together as a coincidence and then they fall in love kind of thing. The only other time I've watched a film like this was because a friend of mine was an actor in it, and therefore I'm going to do a massive cheap plug because I can. My friend Richard Calvert was in a film called Drive Me to the End, and that was so fucking good, even though I did see a friend of mine in a scene where he gets a blowy in a car. It was great. So watch that as well. It's on Amazon for free in the UK.
Did you have a point at the start of that?
No, just plugging my friend's shit.
Okay. Well, speaking of actors, we do get introduced to Brad Dourif and Zabriskie here. I also want to note, in my notes, I refer to the two teenagers by their character names, and I just call Dourif and Zabriskie by Dourif and Zabriskie. I actually don't know their characters' names, but that is not a knock against their characters, because...
It's Abe and Josephine.
Abe and Josephine, that's it, yes. I'll see if I can remember that. But my friend Alex said that he found the idea of Brad Dourif being in a Christmas movie quite incongruous to his eclectic acting style, and he is quite subdued in this. And I think we'll get into all the examples, but I think Dourif and Zabriskie are really good in this film.
I've got the exact thing in my notes as well. Brad Dourif and Grace Zabriskie are great, and I think they have a chemistry, and Brad Dourif's ever so slightly peculiar character suits the actor as well. And yeah, I think you're right. And it all kind of works from the transition from the horror to when they're just chatting about cooking and presidents and Rosemont and stuff. It's at that point that we get into what the film is really about. You had to get the young couple there, and I don't know how you could have done it without it being a horror film, but as soon as you do, both Brad Dourif and Grace Zabriskie just fucking shine. Completely shine.
Yeah, Brad Dourif he's quite subdued in this role, and it works in his favour. Like, he's very likeable. As you said, he's a little peculiar, but then, maybe that is your first impression of Brad Dourif. But like, he's very warm and gentle, and I just want to talk to Brad Dourif. Do you know what I mean? Because he sounds so warm and inviting. And Zabriskie really steals the show in this movie. She, I think, is credited first, and I didn't realise, but I think she is the main character in this movie.
She's certainly the most pivotal character.
Yeah.
And the whole story is based around her trauma.
Yeah, there's a lot of on-the-nose dialogue, and people do say what they are thinking, but Zabriskie stands out because her character of Josephine, she seems noticeably better written than the other characters, in the sense that she doesn't say what she's feeling. You do feel like she is withdrawn and not acknowledging what's going on inside her head. And just a really good character and a really good performance.
And I think you get to see the very damaged person she's become when she's being all kind of suspicious with a gun, etc., etc. But as she warms up, that feels organic. And then towards the end, as she becomes more badass and she's got her fire back, it all feels like really nicely paced, natural progression of a woman who has finally started to warm up after her grief has turned her into someone that isn't who she really is.
And it is surprising when you start watching this movie. The dialogue at the start, like, even Dourif, as good as Dourif is, that very early scene with him and Brad, where it's so spelt out, like, oh, the past was great, but, then she became a battle axe. Like, he's just saying what happened, but despite that, Zabriskie's performance of that is surprisingly, shockingly nuanced and well done. And not to contrast completely, but the younger actors, they're not as good, but by the end of the film, I did like both of their characters. It doesn't help that a lot of their dialogue is quite on the nose. They're not as good as selling it. Like, when they get in to their first room, The dialogue is so transparent. It's just, wow, bizarre world. He works for her, but she cleans for him. Are they doing it? I guess in a weird way, people might talk about that stuff in this situation. It feels weird, doesn't it?
Yes.
When characters are just saying what's happening. It's like the skeleton of a script.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's got some really warm and kind of welcoming lines that really make you feel that these characters are well thought out. But then there is quite a lot of just essentially useless lines as well. I'm not trying to slag this film off. I genuinely enjoyed it, particularly as I thought I was going to hate it. It isn't perfect, though.
No, I honestly think, because I was making my notes as I was watching it, and so I'm reading my notes at the start of the film when I've seen the end of the film, I do think the film improves. The film effectively warms up as it goes.
Like the character of Josephine.
Like all of the characters. I mean, like I said about these two actors, I didn't know who these actors were, and I didn't think these characters were going to be anything interesting. I was really just watching it for Dourif and Zabriskie, but I ended up liking them by the end of it. I liked all of these characters by the end of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And what I like about it is it's almost like two parallels, two couples who aren't couples that you really want to become couples. I wanted the Josephine and Abe characters to get together more than I wanted Brad and Lisa to get together. At least to begin with, I think.
Yeah, that is one thing I do really like about the film. And I guess this is jumping way to the end, but just for this point, they really wait the whole film for that. And I like that it wasn't so obvious, that they did have to go through a lot together in order for that to pay off. And even then, at the end, Abe and Josephine are still just friends, really? And I like that about those characters. I like that the more we learn about these characters, especially Josephine and her past, that these two people are together because they are friends. And they are the oldest of friends.
Yeah.
I do also get that Christmassy feeling because you expect this to be a Christmassy film where they get together at the end.
Yeah. So the one thing I did like initially about the two young characters is the weird laughing thing felt really, really organic and real. I've definitely done that before, and it made me laugh. And yeah, I liked that scene. That really endeared me to them, and I think I liked the film a lot more because it was quite silly, but also something that I could identify with.
It is an odd moment. I always... I wouldn't say I do feel like this, but it does almost feel like Stockholm Syndrome in a sense where I'm looking at the first half of this movie versus the second half, where I think if I watch this movie again, then I would be all in it by the start. Like, I like these characters, I like what's going on. So, yeah, that was a nice little organic moment. What I'm trying to say is the first time watching this, I'm thinking, oh, this dialogue is stilted, oh, these characters are just so transparent. If I watched it again, I probably would think like, oh, well, it's an awkward situation, so they're going to be talking a little bit awkward. It's meant to be written like this. I'm going to be a lot more warmer to the faults.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a very likeable but quite gentle film.
It is a very gentle film, and that's what I do like about it. It's very gentle, and then you wonder where it's going. You don't actually... That's kind of the opposite effect. You don't really wonder where it's going, because you like how leisurely it is. You like them just hanging out at this lodge and just talking about maybe renovating it and talking about, the past and the future and stuff. You like just hanging out with these characters. So when the plot stuff happens, the plot turns feel... not weird, but like you never quite know where this movie is going. And I think that's what a lot of the reviews point out, that they don't know where it's going. Because we do have, now that they're in this hotel, they can't leave the next day, but Zabriskie is warming up to them once she learns she is 8 months pregnant. And then we get the first of the turns. We get the little subplot where someone is printing out copies of missing person pages, and it says that Lisa was kidnapped.
Yeah, and I think we do need to touch on the Craig character. He is genuinely a very, very unpleasant, gaslighting piece of shit, abusive cunt. And he does come as a bit of a shock that she's gone through all that with his horrible, horrible manipulation. This really did feel quite ominous that he was chasing after her. And I don't think I was ready for it because it had been gentle up until that point.
I'm going to merge together a few scenes here. This is one of the darker elements of it because we do get the early scene of when the next morning Lisa runs out into the snow and she just books it in one direction. And you get that very raw dialogue of her saying maybe she is running out there because she wants to die. And that just comes out of nowhere that this character wants to die. But then in effect, maybe that works for the film because we're enjoying being at the lodge.
Yeah.
We're kind of like more like Brad. And so it comes out of left field because we didn't know this character Lisa was so depressed. We didn't know her situation was so bad. And then, to jump ahead, we do get that really dark backstory with her when she does open up to Josephine that she was pregnant at 15, right? Yeah, it was basically statutory rape. And her boyfriend, Craig, is a much older character. And not only that, but then her family is really religious and they kick her out. So she has to move in with Craig. And then they consider giving the baby up for adoption, but then she isn't allowed to talk to the people who are going to adopt the baby until she does pick up the phone and talks to them. And she learns they're going to give Craig $75,000, and she didn't hear anything about this. So then she runs away.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's just dark plot point upon dark plot point.
And, you know, we've also just come from reeling from how very sad Josephine's story is as well.
Yeah. It works, though, doesn't it? As odd as it is, it works because I think what people will be surprised about is how not Christmassy this movie is. It's set during Christmas, but it is about sad characters. Characters that are going through a lot that aren't feeling Christmassy at Christmas.
Well, I mean, this is the classic what is a Christmas movie argument, isn't it? And this isn't Die Hard, but it's a similar thing. It's set at Christmas, but it's, some people argue it's not a Christmas movie. And I don't want to get into that.
Yeah. Well, thankfully it works in his favour because as it goes on, these plot points and these characters really do grow on you. And it really does become a good film. But it is shocking. It is shocking when these early plot points do come in because you are enjoying the atmosphere of just being there. You almost don't want the darkness to come. But then I guess, yeah, maybe that's a point to it. You know, some people are like Brad and their life is pretty good. Their life is pretty fine. And then some people are like Lisa or Josephine and their life isn't good. And it's about listening and learning and understanding what each other are going through.
Yeah. Should we talk about how the birth was a bit filmy?
The birth was an interesting plot point because as the film starts, she is pregnant, yes, and heavily pregnant. They say over 8 months pregnant. But I think in another film, you would have expected the birth to be maybe at the end of the film or the third act. This birth happens halfway through the film.
Yeah, but as much as it was necessary, I don't know. I have regular rants about films. Stuff like, if you get knocked unconscious, you aren't going to be capable of being a human for a good while. You won't just get straight up and get on with your shit. Concussion is real, and silencers aren't real. There is no such thing as a silencer. That is just created for film. And this birth smacked of film birth to me. There was very little mess, and yeah.
I'm going to disagree. I liked the birth scene. I thought it was treated with, in the same way that these characters' backstories are treated, it was treated with a degree of realism. I thought there was mess. We didn't see it, but we did see it at one point, very briefly. because I think it doesn't want to get too far away from the Christmassy tone. You saw some towels that had blood on them, so it was showing that it wasn't a completely clean event. And you do get the detail of Brad Dourif sterilizing the utensils and then him cutting the umbilical cord.
Oh, I mean, Abe is adorable in the first scene.
He's a great.
The character's great.
Just him. The best moment was when he's reading the manual on how to deliver a baby, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to say the terms out loud, so he's trying to get Josephine to read it, and she doesn't have her glasses on, so she can't.
So this scene, right? And I know this is obviously coming as a massive Chucky fan. Did you not just think that book was midwifery for dummies?
That would have been a nice tie. I thought, even dumber, I saw the image of Brad Dourif of a turkey baster, and I was like, what is this, Seed of Chucky again?
Oh no, you're right.
But no one who was sincerely watching this movie thought that.
No. Fucking hell. You're worse than me.
But then we do, with the baby now born, we do have the odd kind of... Again, this movie is quite patient in its plotting. We do savor the moments of just little character beats and stuff. It's kind of a weird reset of pacing because now the baby is born. We get quite a lot of scenes of Michael Gross is introduced as, I guess, the town doctor. He sees to the baby and everything. And then we get like the two snowmobilers who come in. And we get like a number of scenes with these characters.
And they get their asses smacked.
I saw that in a couple reviews, and people said, what is up with the wooden spoon scene? That's weird.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. It's totally fucking bizarre.
The idea of, she knew these adults when they were kids, and she's going to punish them like they were kids. Whatever. That scene goes on for so long, and it is her, addressing them by their full names, her saying what they did wrong to her. It's a really long scene.
And they just accept that this lady's going to smack their ass. And really? And I don't know. It's not my kink, but I would have thought that... it was weird. It was very strange. And it did stick out.
It did.
And I think... Did it need it? Did this film need... an old lady smacking two lads with a spoon? Did it need that?
I don't know if it needed that. I think I will chalk that up to Bill Rebane, thinking that was a funny quirk. And I mean, Bill Rebane's old now. He's like 85, so he probably knew someone who did that and thought, yeah, that's relatable. Everyone will get that.
I mean, I'm sure I know someone who's done that as part of a kink.
I do.
Is it you, Dave?
This is a Christmas special. We'll keep it PG.
No, we fucking won't.
I will say, though, as weird as that moment was, I do still like these character beats with these characters.
Character beats. I see what you did there.
I do like these character moments. Like, I think, just like Dourif and Zabriskie, I think Gross is very natural. Instantly, when he goes to see on Lisa and they catch up in the hallway, it's like these people know each other. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like them talking about history feels so real. Them just, oh, remember this person? They're all grown up. Like, that could be very trite dialogue, but they deliver it so organically.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
And then it's just also nice as well. We're skipping over some small elements and some big story beats and stuff, but throughout the film we do see these moments with Zabriskie's character where she takes the excuse to branch out a little bit, get out of her seclusion. This is a nice scene. As weird as the whole wooden spoon bit was, I do even like the bit with the snowmobilers because that's something that a lot of people relate to, knowing people when they were babies and then seeing them all grown up. And it's like,
Yeah, true.
it's kind of the weird thing of they are completely different people, but you still act like you know them.
Do you know what I didn't do when I met someone who was an adult that I knew as a kid? I didn't bend them over the kitchen table and smack them with a wooden spoon.
Well, did they ever annoy you with snowmobiles?
No, but fucking hell.
We get the piano scene, don't we now?
Yeah, which was really lovely, actually.
A really lovely scene between the two. Again, so natural, so organic, of them just playing the piano and just enjoying each other's company. That gets across really well that these are two people that have lived together for decades.
Yeah.
And again, they hit the same points again. Dourif does the best he can of a lot of repeated dialogue of, there used to be so much laughter back in the day. He's been saying that the entire film, that it used to be better back in the day, but he's still doing a good job of it. But then a really good moment in this is when he brings up Kyle, and she immediately changes. She's no longer laughing. It's like she's been hit with a car. The grief that hits her. And it's a really good examination of how different people deal with grief. And it's how people have to deal with grief together, because she has withdrawn herself, even from Abe, the person she lives with, for decades. Like, the only person she talks to. She has withdrawn herself from everyone emotionally. And in a way, as sympathetic as that is, there's a level of selfishness to it. He says that Kyle wasn't just your husband, he was my best friend. And I think about him every single day. And that's just such a really good take on grief.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know about you, but I'd never heard the term solo hunting accident before. So it came as a massive shock to me that he had taken his own life.
Yeah, let's back up a little bit. So this was the cherry on the cake of her backstory. So before her backstory was her family, I believe, who was it? It wasn't the husband because she wasn't there, but it was her. It was like her daughter and her husband, and then their child, so her grandchild. They were flying a plane and they crashed. And then, just in the graphic detail, they described this, that they were found eaten by wolves. And then, in the dialogue, they never found the baby. It was probably dragged away. That is intense for a Christmas movie.
It is. It's quite dark, and it doesn't pull its punches in a lot of ways, this film, which I think is part of the reason why I liked it.
And the same thing with the solo hunting accident. The fact that he really says, have you ever heard of anyone who died in a solo hunting accident? He killed himself. And, it's rough.
Yeah.
This is where the film really started to win me over. Not just because it went dark in a Christmas movie, but because it went really real. You can't sugarcoat or ignore pain like this in your life. You've got to accept it to a degree and learn to live with it.
Yeah. And, grief is something that will live with you forever, and you can be like Josephine and let it win, or you can do your best to live on and have that person as an inspiration rather than something that stops you. And I mean, obviously I've not lost a partner, but I lost my mum a year ago, and fucking hell, it's hard. But I don't believe in an afterlife, but I think my mum would want me to carry on, succeed, enjoy my life, meet people. I don't think anyone that loves you would want you to retract into yourself and live a shit life.
Yeah, definitely. And as good as this scene was then, we're only at the hour mark in a 90-minute film. And so after this emotional scene, Brad and Lisa are going in the ambulance. The road has been cleared, and they're no longer snowed in at Rosemont. They're heading off. They're hugging each other, and that's little moments like that I really like. Brad hugging Abe and Josephine. They've gotten to know each other over this time. But then they're leaving, and it's like, hang on, what's the last 30 minutes of this movie going to be? We're no longer at Rosemont now.
Yeah, and they weren't snowed in for very long.
No!
They acknowledge they've only known each other for 2 days. And I don't think I cared. The scene where they cuddled up and they looked like a family really warms my heart, because I think that's what I'm looking for from a Christmas film, rather than people who've taken their own lives and gaslighting partners and other horrid shit. So I think I desperately wanted that and kind of suspended my disbelief because of it.
And it kind of works. It still works in his favor because of some of the most underrated parts of the first hour we've gone through are those really small moments, like Brad Dourif sipping a drink by the fire, or them just doing odd jobs and stuff. You know, them looking at photos on the wall of the past. You just enjoy spending time with these people in this location, and that kind of becomes a part of the whole finale. Is that you know, we're saying goodbyes, but we don't quite want to say goodbye yet. So Zabriskie sees that Lisa has left her purse and uses that as an excuse to finally leave the lodge after all this time. She dolls herself up, she dresses up. Brad Dourif is agape at this. And we get that great hard-ass line from Zabriskie of, well, you close your mouth, you look like a damn idiot. It's just a great little character moment. And yeah, she goes out to the hospital. Everyone is happy to see her again. That great moment when she decides to drive and Dourif is he's just slumped in the seat just watching her drive. And then it gets back into those drama scenes. So Craig shows up. He wants the baby. And it's kind of rough because it doesn't work, but he does an effective job at trying to gaslight her again.
Yeah, it's vile. It's really well done, actually. He is completely irredeemably abusive here. And it's done in a really subtle way, which is how gaslighters work.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, oh, I didn't tell you about the money because that was going to be a surprise when we got it. I was going to tell you about the money when we got it. Like, that's almost believable.
Yeah, and it's horrible. It's really horrible. And, I've dealt with friends who've been gaslighted. I've been gaslighted myself in the past. And I wouldn't go as far as saying it triggered me, because I won't let that sort of thing happen to me anymore. But it really did make me kind of dig my nails into my hand with kind of genuine anger, because it really was, because of its subtlety, a fantastic depiction of gaslighting. And yeah, it definitely hit a nerve with me. But then Josephine's badassery warmed my heart. She kicked his punk ass and I loved it. And it was mildly comic, and the humiliation of the gaslighter being beaten up by an old lady was so fucking great. And it did such a good job of, this is awful, this is awful. Oh, wait a minute, it's Christmas. Let's batter the gaslighter. It was great. It was a great scene.
I agree completely. I was the same way when I watched it. That's the magic of this film, that we went into it thinking it was going to be a bad film. But then when the bad guy comes along, he's not comically a bad guy. You could argue that the backstory is comically dark, but then at the same time, it's real. People do have that story that they're unfortunately going through. And he should be the stock villain that is like, woohoo, he's getting thrown out. But yeah, that scene of him showing up is really real. Like, I didn't want to watch these characters that I've grown to like go back into bad stuff. Even Brad getting arrested felt bad.
Yeah.
I thought he was a kidnapper. Like, that sucks.
Yeah. Like a collateral damage to the cruelty of Craig, and it was hard to watch. Yeah, it was really well done.
It was hard to watch. And then what was great to watch is Josephine kick his ass. And again, it really works for her character, because if she didn't pick up that purse, if she didn't make the decision to go out and see Lisa one more time, then that wouldn't have happened. That only happened was because the effect that Lisa and Brad had on her. That she did warm those past couple of days, and then she did go out, and thank God this happens. And, it is a lot of the conflict wrapped up into one scene to resolve. It's a little fast, but then, she's not wrong. He is a statutory
No?
rapist, so that's
Yep.
kind of a good reason why he's just lost immediately.
Yep. Bell end.
And so, he gets kicked the fuck out. And in the same scene, she also happens to know the sheriff, so Brad gets let out.
Yeah. And I think it's really fascinating that there's just a subtlety about how this woman used to be like the big dog in town, and she's still got that respect 15 years on. I think that's kind of cool and a really nice little element to the plot.
Yeah, like her seeing Michael Gross earlier. Like, people miss her. She maybe assumes that, she's just the crazy recluse who everyone knows about. But no, people miss her. People do remember her fondly. And that's really nice.
Yeah.
And also, this was really the point where it snuck up on me because, I already like Brad Dourif and I already like Grace Zabriskie, so I love these characters already. But like, this was the point where it snuck up on me how much I liked Brad and Lisa. Their scene together here. Brad and his plot line, he gets rejected by his girlfriend because she recognizes how much he's talking about Lisa and how much he does obviously like Lisa. So he goes to see her. And I like this realism of the scene of them not quite knowing how to say goodbye. It's a lot of goodbyes over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just nice because it's like, that's a tough thing to move on from, You've only known this woman for a day, but she's given birth and you've been a part of that. Like, you are a part of each other's lives. And that must be so awkward to say, all right, see you later. I'll never see you again.
Yeah, and one of my favourite films is very much a almost polar opposite of what I normally enjoy. But it's called Beyond Sunrise. There's a trilogy of those films by Richard Linklater.
Yeah.
And they are so low-key, but they're so good. And this is not that good. But them parting at the end of that felt very similar to this.
Yeah. In a weird way, because, it's on every year, and I just recently saw it, but it reminds me in a way of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I've never seen that.
You should. It's a very good film. Very good film. Steve Martin and John Candy just at their best. It's very good. But that's the same thing. It's like it's a comedy where these two people need to get across the country. They need to get to their homes on Thanksgiving, and they hate each other the entire way. Well, they don't hate each other. John Candy is just he's very annoying in a nice way. Like, he doesn't realize he's being annoying or obnoxious.
Yeah.
Steve Martin is just very uptight and can't take any of it, but he puts up with it because John Candy's helping him get across the country. And that movie then takes the turn at the end. It's such a sweet, tender turn at the end when they realize, like, as much as they annoy each other, that the last couple of days they've been through are like this. They're very monumental. Like, they've changed as people. And so it is very sad to say goodbye.
Yeah, it's true.
Then we're not quite sure where the finale is going here. Everyone is just, now the bad guy is gone. Everyone is just friends. Then we get the weird grandchild idea. What did you feel about this twist? And I'll say quote unquote twist.
I thought it was a bit of a stretch. It's kind of lovely, and I like how it's left ambiguous whether or not she is or isn't. But it did feel like a bit of a stretch.
It's a very odd idea to throw in at the end. And they do kind of set it up with the picture of how her daughter looks so much like Lisa.
Yeah.
But then, it is very out of nowhere. I'm much like Michael Gross on this side of this, not quite on Zabriskie's side. Like, you sure? Okay. But with enough dialogue, and particularly the scene between her and Lisa, I'm on board of it being ambiguous. I like the idea that it doesn't matter whether or not they know this as a fact.
Yeah.
They don't need to know that in order to love each other. They just realize, like, the relationship we have now is like that.
And it is a Christmas film. You do want family,
Yeah.
you do want hugs and kisses and happiness and resolution, so I'll buy it. But I won't buy it for very much money.
Yeah, it's an odd twist. And I've just realised it's not even the last story beat. This film has so many finales to it. But we have this end, we have that ending, which kind of draws everyone together. Then we have the real ending. The whole film, and it's been a very minor subplot, was Brad telling Dourif that, this hotel could be really cool. You should open it up again, and you've got money in the wine downstairs. You have the money to renovate the whole place. And that's not really a plot point that was major in any way. It was always there in the background. And then that becomes the final beat of Josephine has this surrogate family now, but is she going to fully open herself up to the world again?
And I think the scene with Abe basically bollocking her.
Oh, yeah.
It was really hard to see that argument, but I'm glad it happened because it does give us our happy ending, which I've drawn 4 love hearts for and my notes.
It's amazing that because it is a happy ending. It's a happy, the very end of it is happy, but she has built such high, thick walls around her emotionally that you do need a shout like that. Like, Dourif really did need to get right at her core in order to get through to her. And yeah, it was difficult to watch, but amazing performances by the both of them. Really, really good. I think we both really like this movie. We definitely really liked it by the end of it. I think this is a film that people should watch, I think the listeners should definitely give it a go this season. Like, people should watch this movie. It's an odd movie. It's a low-budget movie. You're not quite sure where it's going, but when it works, and the actors really do sell it so well.
Yeah, and it could have been utterly shit if the actors were bad. It really could have been a terrible film. But I think the acting in this is worth acknowledging as making this film watchable and something that I could get invested in.
It sneaks up on you. The whole thing sneaks up on you. The writing seems so weird and transparent at first, and it's like the writer is getting better as they go on. Because these scenes that we've talked about in detail, these later scenes, are really, really good.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Like we said at first, these actors are most famous for other things like Twin Peaks and Seinfeld, or Child's Play and Lord of the Rings. But some of these scenes, like the piano scene or the scene at the end, like if you're going to show off how good these actors are, I would show these scenes.
Yeah, I think so. I was pleasantly surprised throughout, to be honest with you. And I guess I knew Brad Dourif would be good quality. And also Grace Zabriskie would also be good quality. But if you are in a particularly weakly written film, even the best actors can only do a certain amount. But I think this was maybe an average film, made much better by the acting and the sincerity of it all. It was really, really good. It's really worth watching. It's very Christmassy, and it hasn't changed my life. It isn't going to be a film I watch a lot, but I wouldn't balk at the idea of watching it again.
I'll put it out there. I think I will be watching this again next Christmas. Every Christmas? I don't know. But I don't know. We saw at the start of this, there are some reviews people have put out there. Yeah, this is a movie that not many people know about. And when you look it up, there is no information on the making of the movie. This is not a movie that I think these actors talk about very often. But you see those reviews where people are like, wow, this is a really good movie. And it's kind of a hidden gem in a way.
I think so.
Well, that was Rosemont. Christmas at Rosemont, snowed in at Rosemont. I think we'll probably just call it Rosemont.
Yeah.
A delightful surprise. I've already said it. We've both already said it. It's a recommend.
We still should have done Santa's Sleigh.
Next year. Yeah,
I think all we need to say is season's greetings and best wishes for a happy new year, really, now, don't we?
Yeah. I think the next time you'll hear us will be the far future of 2023. And yeah, we'll have more specials. We'll have more Chucky in any which way he comes in the future.
Well, I think, unless something comes up that we jump at, the next thing we're going to review is going to be a contemporary film, one that is coming out at the cinema in January.
Yes!
We are going to watch Megan, and we are going to review it as soon as we possibly can afterwards. And yeah, that should be a lot of fun. It's, again, perhaps not massively different, but something slightly different to what we've been doing with specials and stuff in the past. So yeah, we're going to watch Megan. And how am I going to make notes in the cinema? Shit.
I have made notes in the cinema.
But am I going to have to do it from memory? That's going to be a crap episode, Dev.
I've brought a notepad into the cinema and I have made notes before.
Oh, I might do that then.
People are going to be like, why the fuck are these two guys making notes about a horror movie in January?
Because we can, and because we're fucking CHUCKYVISION. At CHUCKYVISION on Twitter, if that still exists at this point.
Nice segue, yes. If Twitter doesn't exist, we will still exist. We will outlive Twitter.
Oh, we might be on fucking Instagram by this point. Fuck you, Elon Musk. I mean, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Hey, I mean, Elon Musk is kind of a stock Hallmark Christmas villain, isn't he?
It is.
Right, so that is at CHUCKYVISION. You can find me at Absolute Travis T. You can find Mark at
Mark Adams HC.
Would you like to do your usual plugs?
No, can't be asked.
And without further ado, until next time, wanna slay?
You are a shocker. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
CHUCKYVISION is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Network. Follow us on Twitter at CHUCKYVISION. Follow the network on Twitter at WMT_network. Our website is WeMadeThisNetwork.com. The logo was designed by Dev, and the theme tune composed by Dark Fantasy Studios. Wanna play?
100 years since Nosferatu first terrified audiences on the big screen.
30 years since Francis Ford Coppola gave us Bram Stoker's Dracula.
And 10 years since Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp.
Vampire Videos is a podcast taking a look at this iconic blood-sucking monster on film and television.
I'm Dan Owen.
And I'm Hugh McStay.
And we're here to guide you through a century of vampirism on film. From Hollywood's golden age with Bela Lugosi as Count Dracula,
to the more lurid hammer horrors of the 60s and 70s starring Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Through to the 80s boom in vampires, which brought these creatures of the night into the modern age.
And everything this century's had to offer us, from foreign and independent films, spoof comedies, and even teenage love stories. Yes, I'm talking about Twilight.
We aim to cover it all, one bite at a time.
So join us on a voyage into the depths of vampire cinema, old and new, with weekly guests offering their own insights and expertise. And why not follow us on Twitter at VampVideos?
A proud part of the We Made This podcast network, subscribe now to Vampire Videos, and thanks for listening.